everybody, and welcome to Psyched Out. I'm not going to do the usual intro because I am feeling a little bit under the weather. If you're watching on YouTube, you may have noticed I have a gigantic dinosaur on my head that is attached to a blanket. My face is super broken out. My throat has been pretty sore, but I still want to produce an episode for you guys. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into it. We're going to be talking about the Unknown Number documentary, which was something I teased a long time ago and never got around to it. But I finally circled back, so it's something we're going to talk about. I'm not going to break it down like I would a normal case that I discuss. I'm just kind of assume that everybody who is listening to this episode has seen the documentary. If you have not, this episode is going to contain a lot of spoilers, so I highly recommend that you go watch the documentary beforehand. If you don't care, that's fine. You may proceed, but if it's something that's going to bother you, I would say go watch the documentary first. Basically, what I'm going to do is break down some of the problems I had with the documentary, some of the problems I had with the investigation, obviously the psychology side of things, and then social media's reaction to what happened, and just kind of my thoughts and feelings on that. So the first thing I want to talk about, and it's probably one of the biggest issues I have with the documentary and then the way that social media handled it, is a lack of recognition that Owen is a victim. Owen was a victim of severe sexual harassment by a grown-ass woman. He was about, I think, 13 or 14 at the time that all of this was happening. And he was being sent some of the most explicit sexual text messages I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And as somebody with experience in law enforcement, currently employed in law enforcement, I have seen some pretty wild stuff. But I have never in my life seen something that gratuitous and sexual towards a minor by a grown adult, let alone a female. So, number one, yes, Lauren is a victim. And yes, I understand why the documentary centered on her a little bit more than Owen, because it's Lauren's mother involved in all of this. But I do not think it was talked about enough, the type of messages that were sent to him and the effect that it would have on him. I am sure that he felt a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of guilt, and a lot of anger surrounding the situation because he was sexually abused, to put it bluntly. And to put it bluntly, Kendra is a child predator, and the fact that she was not charged as a child predator, or at least with sexual harassment, absolutely baffles me. The only plausible reason I can see that not being a thing is if it was, one, some type of plea deal, or two, Owen and his family decided, hey, I don't want to press charges, I just want this shit to be over. And if that's the case, I completely understand that. But if law enforcement just decided not to do it, I firmly disagree with that. I think there was more than enough evidence there to say, hey, this woman sexually harassed this kid for more than a year, and she did not stop at any point in time. It literally continued for an entire fucking year. Not only that, she essentially cyber-stalked him as well. So yeah, Kendra is a child predator. And some of the stuff that was being sent to Owen was basically like, hey, I want to make you cream. I think there was something about being finger blasted. There was also mention of blowjobs or BJs as well. And the fact that grown men that were in charge of the investigation in this documentary were made uncomfortable by the things Kendra was saying to Owen, a baby child, should tell you everything you need to know about what Kendra was saying and how wrong it was. And I don't think she was held accountable enough, and I don't think a lot of people are recognizing the fact that Owen got a very shit end of the stick just as much as Lauren did, because if it were a man sending these types of text messages to a girl, there would be a very different reaction. And I think that is something that is important to point out. I can guarantee you people would have been more pissed off about it if it were a man sending these types of messages to a girl. I'm not afraid to call that out, and I'm not afraid to call it as I see it. That is definitely a portion of what is happening here. So number one, Owen is a victim of sexual harassment, and Kendra is a child predator. Neither of those things are going to be up for discussion or up for debate for me, in my personal opinion, in my somewhat educated professional point of view. Owen, I doubt that you'd be listening to this. You probably want to move on from this moment in life, but I want you to know that I see you, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. You did not deserve that, let alone from an adult that you trusted. That was uncalled for, and I hope that you don't feel any shame or guilt or embarrassment for it, because it was not your fault. What happened to you was not your fault. You did not deserve it. She was a grown adult. She should have been a better human being, and she wasn't. And I'm sorry that all of that happened to you. The second thing I want to talk about is the denial on Kendra's part that she ever sent the first round of text messages. I think a lot of people are with me on this when we call bullshit on that statement. I'm a firm believer she sent those messages, and I can tell you my theory as to why and how that happened. So my first point is that it was a test run. She was doing it to see if she could get away with it, if she was going to get the reaction that she wanted, and if she could basically pawn it off onto somebody else. Because the timing of the first round of messages and when the second round of messages started is very important. Both take place around the time that Chloe is planning her annual Halloween party. The first time, it comes across as Chloe basically saying, haha, like, Owen wants me, I have a crush on him, he has a crush on me, like, I don't want you at this Halloween party. And the way it comes across is one, because of the timing of it, and then two, Lauren and Chloe didn't really get along, which is fine. Chloe and her friends give very mean girl vibes. I'm not here to shit on children, but that's just the read that I get from them. And so it wouldn't be that unreasonable to think, oh, she's just trolling me through an unknown number. It's not that big of a deal. Like, it's going to piss me off for a night, but I'll get over it. And then that kind of ended up being the case because the messages stopped. And I think Kendra thought, I did this, I got away with it, but I didn't get the reaction that I wanted. And so I think once her test run was completed, she kind of figured out what to do next time around, and then used that same guise of, oh, well, the Halloween party's coming up, let's do this again. But instead of just sending some kind of inconspicuous messages, she got fucking batshit insane with it and started saying some absolutely off-the-wall stuff, calling her daughter, like, anorexic, and, like, she has a flat ass and she should just kill herself and things like that. And that got a much bigger reaction, because obviously that is more heinous shit than what was said originally, and it took it a step beyond, somebody just trolling you through a fake number or something like that. So I am a firm believer she did send those first rounds of text messages. She's not going to own up to it because she's a liar and she's a narcissistic piece of shit. But that is my theory, and I don't think it's probably that inaccurate. I think she was just doing a test run, and she got away with it, and then wanted a bigger reaction out of it, and did it a second time. And that's why it happened the way that it did. Another thing that I want to talk about is, how do I phrase it? Politely, I should say. Again, I'm not here to shit on children, but I think we can all agree that Chloe and her friends definitely threw those carrots. They give very big mean girl energy. Those are the exact type of people that bullied me all throughout grade school. I think they definitely were scapegoated because it was easy to do so, knowing their behavior and then knowing the way that they interact with people and the beef that they had with Lauren. So I think for sure, 100% they were scapegoated. Obviously, the documentary covers that, but I think that was Kendra's plan from the very beginning, was to use Chloe and her friends as a scapegoat. Hence why I was saying the original texts and the second string of texts were specifically planned around the time that Chloe had the Halloween party and things like that. So I think Kendra knew exactly what she was doing and picked people ahead of time that she was going to scapegoat as the cause of the text messages. And I am sorry that Chloe and her friends, and even Adriana, got dragged into this and consequently traumatized, because throwing carrots at somebody doesn't, and maybe not having the best attitude and being kind of a school bully does not warrant the amount of trauma and absolute, like, bullshit that came their way as a result of a grown adult's actions. So I want to talk about that. I said it as politely and nicely as I could. I'm not here to shit on children. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that investigators took so long to get an IP address or think of an IP address. I was watching and immediately I was like, oh shit, go do IP address stuff. Now, local departments sometimes have a hard time doing that. However, with the department I work with, we have people that are specifically trained in, like, technology to find IP addresses, to basically dump people's phones and figure that out. So I was a little confused as to why they had to wait to get the FBI on board to do like IP things. I felt that they kind of let it play out a little bit longer than it needed to. I'm glad that it happened in the end, but I think it would have solved a lot of problems if they had just done it sooner. Again, I don't know what the hang up was for all of that, but I felt that it was a little bit ridiculous that it took like basically an entire year for them to even get that far. So that's just kind of my take on it as far as like some of the investigative steps that could have been better. I don't know how the IP stuff works for them. I think it's weird that it took that long. I know I'm like repeating myself, but it's because I'm still trying to process the fact that like it just seems dumb that they were that slow at it. But it is what it is. I also want to talk about the investigators and how for some reason they did not pick up on the verbiage, vocabulary, and mannerisms of the text messages. I very quickly figured out that it was likely a grown woman sending these text messages, and I don't know why investigators didn't clue into this. I don't know if it's like a lack of experience or because they're guys and they don't really know how women work, but to me it was pretty obvious from the beginning. Number one, the messages that were being sent to Lauren are exactly how mean girls talk to people that they don't like and want to bully. They point out appearances, looks, they call people a slut. It's like, oh, you wore that trashy outfit today? Oh, did you get a haircut at the garbage bin from Oscar the Grouch? It looks fucking ugly. Oh, you're anorexic. Oh, you're a slut. Like, that's how girls talk to each other to be mean. And that is exactly the type of messaging that was sent to Lauren. And then, on the flip side, with the messages being sent to Owen, they are very much indicative of an adult. Because I don't think anybody their age would be saying things like cream or BJ in reference to a blowjob. Those are very old school terms that, in my personal experience, have never been used unironically. I have a bunch of guy friends. We hang out in Discord all the time. They will, like, ironically joke with each other and be like, oh, you're gonna make me cream. But that's the only time that word is ever used. It is not used seriously as like, oh, I'm horny. Oh, I'm sexting. Like, nobody does that. That is so outdated and so old school. Especially BJ. Nobody in my generation says that. Nobody. I've never heard it. Not even once. Right off the bat, that says to me, oh, this probably isn't a kid. Because no kid is using that language. Let alone a 12 or 13-year-old child. So, that was a red flag. And on top of that, the overly sexualized text messages being sent to Owen very much read like a woman and not necessarily a man, because it was focused more on Owen and his experience rather than, in a lot of cases with like male perpetrators, it's focused on their experiences. If you see a lot of cases where it's like male predators talking about girls, they want the girl to do things and say things that's going to gratify them, and they're not going to be as forward about things the way that this texter was with Owen. Because I know, unless you're like a pedophile who has an affinity for like boys, you're not going to go out of your way to be this sexual with somebody, because when you compare it with Lauren and Owen, if it is a male perpetrator, who's going to get the sexual text messages? Most likely Lauren. Again, that's caveated with the fact it depends on what their gender preference is, which feels weird to say because they're a pedophile and fuck their gender preference. But just for explanation purposes, gender preference. So that was weird. And it kind of confused me why investigators just did not pick up on that at all. As far as I could tell, granted that may just be the framing of the documentary, but I know myself and a lot of other people who I've talked to about the documentary were like, oh yeah, I knew right away that it was an adult and that it was a woman. Because no guy is talking to a girl that way, because that's not how they like bully. Guys are a lot more physical. They don't say things like, oh, you're an anorexic slut or anything like that. They just don't do that. That's not how men behave. So I was very confused by that and thought, well, maybe it's obvious to me because hindsight's 2020. Who knows? I don't know. If you guys picked up on that, please let me know down in the comments or something, because I'm very curious if everybody watching the documentary clued into that and investigators just didn't. If that's the case, hopefully they kind of get a little bit better training and things like that to figure that out. Next on my chopping block of things to discuss is the kind of confusion I felt with the fact that they did not block the number. And at first I was very angry. I was like, why are you not protecting your kids? Just block the goddamn phone number. And they wouldn't do it. And it wasn't until later that I kind of understood why. And it was because of Owen's mom, who was basically like, well, my son's getting all of these very explicit text messages about sex. And at this point, it was very clear that whoever was messaging him was stalking him, which meant it was likely somebody from their inner circle. And his mom was like, well, if I block the number and we never figure out who's doing this, I might be letting a sexual predator still interact with my child. And once she said that and like kind of gave that as an explanation, I was like, oh shit, I'm not mad anymore. That makes a lot of sense. Like where she's coming from, I never thought of it that way. But then I very much was like, okay, cool. I need to check my own bias and understanding of this and realize like she's onto something there. Not really anything to analyze, just an interesting point in the documentary where I myself had my own ego checked and then also like my own perspective checked, because she, in my opinion, did as good of a job as she could to protect her child, and I commend her wholeheartedly on that. And there's no way she could have known that it was Kendra. Absolutely no way she would have known. I hope she doesn't feel a lot of guilt about that and shame that she didn't notice or pick up on it sooner, because it's not her fault. You never expect it to be your best friend or anything like that. Another thing as well is Kendra's just behavior in general. I can't diagnose her. I've never really talked to her in person, but I'm going to give you my educated opinion on what I think is going on there with her psychologically, just based on my education and my experience. I may be right, I may be wrong. This is just what I am observing, and just running that through my Rolodex of information that I know. So, number one, she definitely has antisocial tendencies, sociopathic tendencies, and narcissistic traits. I think that is a given. We have to look at the fact that she is volunteering to be on a documentary where she is the bad guy. This isn't like a 48 hours thing where you find out at the end, like, oh, this dude's in prison for 32 years because he murdered his wife. She's served her time. She does not have to be involved with this at all. And frankly, the entire world didn't know about it until this documentary was made. She, for some reason, agreed. And the only thing I can chalk that up to is her pathology, where she wants to control the narrative to the best of her ability. And I saw a lot of people talk about this, and I don't know how accurate it is or how true it is, but a lot of the reason the stuff with Owen wasn't talked about is because Kendra didn't want to talk about it and was going to pull out of the documentary if that stuff was discussed and painted her in a bad light. And to that I say, fuck her, let her pull out of the documentary. Why are we negating what happened to Owen? But I am also not the producer of a documentary, so I did not get a say in that, or, just about anybody else get a say in that. So I think that points to those aspects of her pathology. Now, two other things that I want to talk about are borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that she definitely has some type of personality disorder. I can't tell you which one it is. So these are the two ones that I've kind of honed in on just based on what family said about her in the documentary, her behavior in the crime that she committed, and her behavior in the documentary and willingness to participate in the documentary. Number one is histrionic personality disorder. This ties in a little bit with narcissism. But basically it's this pathology of, I want to be the center of attention come hell or high water. It doesn't matter if it's good attention. It doesn't matter if it's bad attention. I want people looking at me, and I want people to know that I am in the room, and I am here, and it's basically, it feels weird to say this, wanting to be a celebrity, but that's almost how it comes across. And if you remember in the documentary, I believe it was Kendra's cousin, or it might have been her sister. Either way, it was a relative who basically just said to the person interviewing her, hey, if Kendra was in the room right now while you were interviewing me, she would make herself the center of attention and you'd be interviewing her instead. Just straight up threw it out there. And given the fact that she wholeheartedly wanted to participate in the documentary, kind of corroborates that sentiment of, yeah, I'm a piece of shit. I am a skin suit made out of flaming buttholes, but I'm going to sit here and act like I am a victim in this, and I'm going to get as much attention as I can, because the more attention, the better I feel. And again, I think there's some narcissism there. Aside from that, I think there's a hint of borderline personality disorder. It gets called BPD, but it's not bipolar disorder. It's weird that there's like the same acronym. It throws me off sometimes too. But basically, that's characterized with a lot of attachment issues, where there is a severe fear of abandonment and this inherent belief that they are always going to be abandoned and people are not going to want them. And this presents itself in a lot of manipulative behavior to make themselves wanted, a lot of impulsive behavior, very insecure personalities as well, whether that's in their appearance or their relationships or both. I think that fits Kendra quite a bit. And the reason I think this fits Kendra quite a bit is because of what ended up happening. I think Kendra was not happy that Lauren had a boyfriend, that Lauren was getting older, that Lauren was growing up, and that Lauren wasn't going to need her. I think obviously she had an interest in Owen, but I also think she used that interest in Owen and that opportunity to make Lauren more reliant on her by creating the situation that she did, where my daughter is going to need me, therefore she cannot abandon me. Because keep in mind, at the time all of this is going on, Kendra does not have a job. They are in debt. They have financial issues that her husband doesn't know about. And you can only keep that secret for so long before he's going to figure that out. Shit's going to hit the fan eventually. So what better way to secure the fact that your husband's not going to know what's going on and is going to stay with you, and your daughter is going to need you, than to create an absolute shitstorm of a mess where they have to rely exclusively on you to figure out what is going on. On top of that, I think there was definitely the presentation of impulsive behavior, in the sense that you have to be pretty impulsive and ballsy to do this in the first place, but it goes back to her sending the first text messages, because she may deny it. I don't believe that. I think she did send the first text messages of, I'm going to do this, because this is about the time when she lost her job and when the financial issues started. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hope that it worked. And then it didn't work the way that she wanted to. So again, the impulsivity there. And then the insecurity as well. Although I don't think the insecurity presents itself in a way that you would think. Not necessarily, I'm insecure in my image, I'm insecure in like my personality and how I look. I think she was insecure in how life was going to go for her without a job, without these financial, with these financial problems, and then with the fact that her daughter was getting older. I think she was very insecure, which ties into the abandonment issues, and she was very insecure in her relationships. Again, I can't diagnose her, but these were just things that I saw that led me to believe, hey, there might be a little bit of substance here, a little bit of truth here. I know a lot of people, I saw quite a few videos of people being like, oh, it's Munchausen's by proxy. I firmly disagree with that. First of all, there's never been like an electronic case of Munchausen's by proxy. Who knows? Maybe this is the first case or the first time that that's ever happened. But I want to say it was the superintendent who just threw that out there. And a lot of people latched onto it, and I think part of it's because everybody's familiar with the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case, where it was like, I know what that term is. It's a hot topic. It's pretty interesting. I'm going to go with that. I don't think that's what happened at all. I think it was a manifestation of some pretty severe mental illness that I just discussed, where she wasn't basically like, hang on, I'm tripping over my words. She wasn't doing it in the sense that Munchausen's usually happens, which like is medical. That's usually how it manifests of, oh, I'm going to be the hero. She was doing it in the sense of, I don't want people to leave me. And there's a very big difference here. Very big difference. It wasn't like with Gypsy Rose's case where mom's doing Munchausen's by proxy because, one, it was fueled by greed, and then two, like, oh, my daughter is going to be, I'm going to be my daughter's savior and different things like that. Are there some similarities? Yes. But it definitely is, in my opinion, not Munchausen's. I think it's more likely the other two. Again, I can't diagnose her. That's just my educated opinion on it. If you disagree, feel free to let me know. I'd love to know what your thought process is on it and why you may think it's Munchausen's. I disagree with it. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's what happened at all. Another thing that absolutely appalled me in the documentary, and this goes specifically to the investigators, is why the hell they did not separate Kendra and Lauren when they went to do the big reveal of, oh ho, guess what, Kendra, we caught your ass. We're taking you to jail. Have fun in handcuffs, brother. They should have separated Kendra and Lauren, like 100%. They should not have told Lauren that they knew anything with Kendra right there. I think it deprived Lauren of a valid reaction and the inability to process her shock and probably a fuck ton of other emotions. Because when you watch that clip, Kendra smothers the hell out of Lauren. And I'm not using that word lightly. If you haven't seen the documentary, Kendra literally puts like a hand on Lauren's head, wraps an arm around her, and then rests her cheek on Lauren's head as well. Is like fully enveloping her daughter as if she's trying to be comforting. It does not come across that way. It comes across as very possessive and very controlling. And I may not be a body language expert. I did take a course on body language. But what I see in that video is very concerning. The entire time, Kendra is watching Lauren. Her eyes are not on the investigators. She's watching Lauren to see how Lauren reacts, what Lauren is going to do, what her response is going to be, and she is preparing how to react herself based on what she is observing. Lauren, on the other hand, is looking at investigators the entire time, likely confused as fuck as to what she's just been told, and looking at them for reassurance is like, what you're saying, is that true type of thing. She's not concerned with her mom right now, but Kendra is very concerned with her. Lauren is also sitting there with her arms crossed, kind of positioned between her mom. And this goes two ways. One, it's comforting herself, because, again, I can't imagine what sort of feelings she has. Obviously, the world has just turned upside down for her. But on top of that, she's establishing a barrier between herself and her mother. What little separation she can get from this freaking psychotic woman who is smothering her to death after just being told, like, oh, by the way, your mom is the one who told you to kill yourself. So I just felt that they did Lauren a very big disservice. In my experience, you are supposed to separate parties, especially if one is a perpetrator and one is a victim. In a way, this is a domestic violence sort of situation, not in the way that we would typically see it with like very bad verbal arguments or physical, domestic violence, but it is two people in the same household between a mother and daughter. Now, it's domestic violence if a mother and daughter lay hands on each other. It's domestic violence if they get into an absolutely batshit insane argument. This isn't that different, but it just happened over text. So, in that case, you should separate them. Now, I understand it gets a little bit complicated because Lauren is a minor. There's some wiggle room that you're restricted on where you have to ask for parental consent. Like, hey, because the dad wasn't there at the time, to be like, hey, can I talk to her in another room privately? I doubt Kendra would have said yes. But at the very least, what you can do is talk to that child in the same room with the parent present, but have the parent on the other side of the room and the kid on the other side of the room. So even if they're not in completely separate areas, there's enough distance and space there that Lauren is not actively being smothered to death by her mother, who just spent a year harassing her and telling her to kill herself. So I was very pissed off with how investigators handled that. I don't think it was appropriate. I think they could have done better. And I think it damaged the healing process for Lauren, if I'm being completely honest. So that bothered me a lot. On top of that, Kendra love bombing the absolute hell out of Lauren while in prison also pissed me off. And again, kind of goes back to her pathology. One of the things that absolutely irritated the hell out of me, and I can't quote it verbatim because I don't quite remember, was one of the emails where Kendra is like, oh, you didn't say you love me. That really hurt my feelings. I'm just having a bad day now and I'm really sad. First of all, who gives a fuck? You're lucky your daughter is even talking to you, because some people would cut you out of their life instantly and basically say, have fun rotting in there. I don't care what happens to you. But now you're playing the victim because she didn't say I love you. Really? That's what you're doing, dude? And Kendra writes it in a way where it's supposed to be like, oh, haha, like, oh, I'm sad, but I'm not really sad. She is manipulating the situation. She is putting guilt on her daughter, who by all intents and purposes should not feel guilty at all. Like I said, Kendra's very lucky that her daughter is even giving her the time of day. But here we are. I don't think Kendra should have been able to have communication with Lauren because Lauren was a victim. But I also understand why Lauren would want to talk to her mother. I saw a lot of content creators ridiculing Lauren for wanting contact with her mother. And I think that's wrong for a couple of reasons. Number one, Lauren's a child. Every child wants their parent. Growing up, when something's wrong, children want their mother. If you're sick, you want your mom. Okay? Something really bad and emotional happens, you want your mom. Sometimes it's dad. Whoever that parent is for you, when life gets rough and shit hits the fan, you want that parent, no matter how old you get. I'm 24 years old, and if I have a bad day, I want to talk to my mom or I want to talk to my dad. That's just how it is. That is how life is. And suddenly Lauren doesn't have that option anymore because the person that she's relied on for so long is now the person who victimized her. That is such a hard thing to reconcile and come to terms with. I'm very glad that she has a very close relationship with her father, but it's no different than like little boys not having a father. You know, there's this need for kids to have a relationship with their parents. It's why in severe abuse cases, kids still actively seek out their parents and love their parents. The Gabriel Fernandez case with the whole documentary, that little boy was abused so bad he ended up dying. And the entire time, he wanted his parents to love him, and he still loved his parents. Why? Because they were his parents. And that is what kids do. And that is what we as people do. There is a biological instinct in us, deep, deep, deep inside, to want to have a relationship with our family, to want to take care of each other. Even if you have been absolutely abused, there is still some semblance that yearns for that connection that no longer exists anymore. And I think that's the same situation that Lauren is going through, where she may one day separate from her mom completely, but she is not at that point yet. She may never be at that point, but that's up to her. That is her choice and her decision. If that's what she chooses to do, she's going to do that. I don't think we should have any sort of judgment towards her because she is a kid. That is her parent. All of the onus and all of the blame should 100% be on Kendra. And Kendra, if Lauren stays in your life, you should count your motherfucking blessings because a lot of people would have turned away from you. Lauren, in my opinion, if she stays in your life and has a connection with you, is a much bigger person than I would have been. Because I would have still loved my mother, because she's my mother, but I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with her. So I just think it was weird seeing social media kind of get on Lauren for something where it's like, hold up, she's a kid. She got the shit under the stick here, man. Like, she can kind of do whatever she wants as long as it helps her heal, you know, and as long as she's not hurting other people. The other thing that's absolutely crazy to me is that Kendra was able to lie as long as she did about the finances and about not having a job. Again, it goes to show her manipulative nature. And I also think her being in complete control of the finances was, again, a way to secure people in her life because, well, I'm in charge of the finances. I make the money. People are going to rely on me. And then, if shit hits the fan, which it did in the end, and you don't have money and you don't have this, suddenly people aren't going to rely on you because you're a lying piece of shit. So as long as people don't know that we're in financial straits and financial struggles, I can do whatever I want with that money. Nobody's going to know. Therefore, they are still going to be in my life and still engage with me and still be dependent on me because they're under the impression that we are doing well financially. And as soon as that facade crumbles, all of a sudden you're faced with abandonment again because, let's be honest, money issues cause a lot of problems in marriages. But that is also why I'm a big proponent of the fact that you should not have only one person in your marriage be in charge of finances. You should both understand and know what is going on so that issues like this are avoided. Because again, it reads as domestic violence. If I control everything all the time, you cannot leave me. So that's my take on it. I don't have a whole lot left to say as far as the documentary goes and the pathology that is taking place with Kendra and her psychotic little mouth-breathing, turtlenecked face. I hope Lauren heals appropriately. I hope Owen heals appropriately, and everybody else that was traumatized, whether that's Chloe or Adriana. I hope that this is a big warning sign for what can happen, and hopefully people get the help that they need, and investigators learn from the mistakes that they made in this case, because again, I think that there were certain things that could have been handled better and certain things that could have happened sooner. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but in future cases, you can now use this information to better your investigation. I am going to wrap this episode up. It's going to be a little bit shorter than what we are used to, but my throat is freaking dying, and I'm going to need to take a cough drop or some sort to ease the pain in my neck area, if you will. But if you have any thoughts or feelings on the documentary that you want to share, please let me know. If you're not following the podcast, do that, you weirdo. What are you doing? Twiddling your thumbs? Sticking them up your nose? Checking which way the wind is blowing? Hit the follow button. It makes me happy. Leave a review. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. If I'm doing a good job or if you think I suck balls. Because, any bit of information is helpful. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hi. Good to see you. Please ignore my ugly little face right now because I look like poop. But please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. And as always, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay psyched out.